Okay, so broadcasting now. People can start joining us. Oh, I think we have Erik joining us. Yay, just in time.
Hey.
So I'm just going to give everybody a minute to kind of start going, and then we'll get straight into it. And so, oh, we are recording. Good. I see the sign now, so that's perfect because
Cool.
I don't want to do this for naught.
All right.
Given it's 7:01, let's just get started. So for those of you who are joining us, and for those of you who are going to be watching this later on YouTube, this is Wet Dryer Hypothermic, and we are doing a gear review of the Gaucho Derby gear of what passed and failed, and what you can do to improve your waterproofing skills so you don't end up cold and so before we get started, I wanted to go over a few little things. I wanted to say that anybody who is joining us as an attendee, if you have any questions, we would love to hear from you. So you can do that. There is a chat function somewhere on there. I'm not sure how you do it on a phone, but on the computer, it's on the right-hand side. So you can type in the chat, let us know what you want to know. If there's any specific questions or anything. We won't necessarily answer them as they come. We might revisit them at the end. We'll kind of see how things go that way and how we're doing for time. So if we haven't answered your question, don't worry. We'll get to it towards the end. As I said, too, we are broadcasting, or we are recording this so that you guys can watch it again on YouTube afterwards. If you wanted to go back and look at any of the things that Stevie and Erik are showing you. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Stevie and Erik. They were here last week if you were watching that one. And they came back from the Gaucho Derby in, what was it, April? Was it April?
March.
It was still March. See, I don't know. I don't even know. I barely recognize that it's May anymore. They just got back from that, so they've got it fresh in their mind. And what they wanted to talk about first was basically the rain gear, as that seemed like a common theme there. So if you wanted to give us a start, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Gaucho Derby, assuming that maybe somebody doesn't know about it, maybe they weren't following along, and this is the first time they're hearing about it. What is the Gaucho Derby? What makes it different from the out there?
Erik, you want to take that one on Gaucho Derby?
Yeah, what is the Gaucho Derby? So the Gaucho Derby is the newest horse race for the adventurous, who Stevie and I work for. And we already have the Mongol Derby, which is the world's longest and toughest horse race. And I think we're branding all the horse races that we put on adventure horse races as the world's toughest, no matter if it be the Mongol or the Gaucho. So this was our first foray into a new place, a new territory, new culture, and that's Patagonia. So the Gaucho Derby, it's a lot different than the Mongol Derby. The horses are way tamer for the
Oh,
Erik,
losing you there.
I think you're low reception or something there. We missed the last part of that.
The terrain is a bit more water though. So it's where we in the country. Hang on, where did I leave off?
Yeah, we lost a bit of you there.
Where do we leave off?
The horses are a bit
Can you hear
tamer
me?
is where you were at.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, we can't see you. Oh, now we can see you and hear you. We're good.
Okay, I'll pick my phone up a little bit. I feel like it's anyway. So the terrain is a bit more wilder as far as like the mountains and the extremities as far as blizzard, things like that. But it's the new race. So yeah, Gaucho Derby, it's a little bit shorter than the Mongol Derby. It's 500 kilometers versus 1,000. It's a lot of mountains, a lot of more steep climbing. Navigation is really kind of the challenge there, as well as the new terrain that people aren't used to, i.e. shale mountain bogs, river bogs, steep passes and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it.
Okay, and for both of you, how did you become involved with the Gaucho Derby? You both work for the Adventurous, but Stevie, you were a rider, and Erik, you were a crew. So do you want to tell us a bit about yourselves and kind of how this came to be for you?
Go ahead, Stevie. Take the wheel.
All right. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Stevie Delahunt. I was once upon a time an eventer. I'm now a full-time endurance rider. I've been lucky enough to do Race the Wild Coast, the Mongol Derby in 2014, and then I went ahead and tried out this Gaucho Derby in this year, the inaugural running. I work for the Adventurous, and I help to do interviews for the races. And in order to know what it takes to do the race, I had to do the race. So I was a guinea pig. Erik in his infinite wisdom decided to be on crew, which might have been the way to go, but somehow we both ended up in a snowstorm about to die on a mountain at the same time. So I guess it wasn't better to be crew necessarily. Yeah, so I got involved with the race because I absolutely wanted to do it. I was lucky enough to do it with my husband, and it was an amazing experience, but way more adventure than we signed up for, like literal survival.
Erik, do you want to chime in now, your side?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot what the question was for a second.
Yeah. How'd you become involved? Brief history of yourself.
Yeah, I raced in the Mongol Derby 2012, and then since then have been, working for the Adventurous, whether it be helping out with interviews, or primarily working on running our social media pages. So that's me, if you see the funny little things. And then also I work on the Mongol Derby every year as a crew member, doing the search and rescues, doing the socials, helping out with the families, organizing the herders, things like that. So yeah, that's our story kind of thing.
Okay, cool. And I wanted to know from both of you guys, when I wrote it down, I said, what was your training? Give me an overview of your training for the race. Now, Erik, I'm assuming you probably didn't train, but you're like out there adventuring all the time. So I'd like, if you could talk maybe about that and how it prepared you for this. And if Stevie, you wanted to talk about, because I know you were doing a lot more training at home while riding, doing gym and that sort of preparation. So if you guys kind of wanted to touch on those different topics, we'd like to know how you got ready for this adventure.
Cool. Do you want to go first, Erik?
Yeah, I'll go first. So my other job is I run my own kind of adventure company. Who Sarah's been on my trip actually last year. We had some fun weather up to the reindeer herders in northern Mongolia. So I spend the majority. What'd you say?
Ice pellets. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we lost an onion. God rest its soul.
I forgot what Katja was mumbling when we were going through that, but
I think I destroyed Erik.
Oh.
Or am I the one who's out now?
I can see me. You're frozen.
You guys are, yeah, Erik or Sarah's going out.
Uh-oh, that Canadian, I guess it ain't coming across the border. That's a problem. Let's wait till she comes back.
Sarah.
At least she's frozen in a smile.
Yeah, right? Oh, funny.
Should we keep going until she comes back? I guess we should hold up and see. Sarah, you there?
Yeah, I don't know if she can. Maybe we should just keep going. I don't know if it's being recorded.
Yeah, she's the perfect audience member because she's just like always laughing.
Happy.
Like someone's hearing us. So, okay, perfect. Hey, Aletta, I saw her just comment. Oh shit.
Oh, it's just us. All right.
Is anybody watching? Hang on, let's see. Are the participants still here? They're here.
Yep. Okay, they said keep going,
there
so
too.
keep going.
Wendy Webb, so I guess we can keep going. Everybody comment if you can see us. Yeah, so wait, what was she asking? Oh yeah, so basically I spend most of the year in Mongolia from April to November, and I run pretty adventurous horse trips there. One is to the reindeer riders in the northern Mongolia, which is terrain kind of very similar to what we did in Patagonia. The mountains probably aren't quite as high, but a lot of bogs up there as well. Crazy weather. We've had a blizzard in the middle of the summer that we had to get out of, and then it turned into flash flooding, and we had to end up taking saddles and stripping the horses down when we got to a flooded river and climbing across on logs with all the gear, and then throwing a rope to the other side and tying it to the horse's halter and dragging them across the rapids. So been through a few things, and last year was in a blizzard during my eagle hunter trip. So that was interesting. So got to test all the gear before I came. And yeah, so that's kind of the preparation. Like, I'm on a horse 90% of the time when I'm in Mongolia, pretty feral ones at that. And leading up to the race, I'll say physically, I didn't train too hard. Mistake number one. I did ride, look, you have 2 horses here, so I did ride a fair bit for the most part. But yeah, do it again, I would definitely lose some weight, and maybe not. I called my chubby belly my insurance policy, which it was definitely true out there. Glad to have it, but maybe not so much of it. So Stevie, I think she can just get in when her internet comes back. So Stevie, tell us how you trained for the race.
So I am from Michigan originally, but I still really hate snow. So every time it rained here in California, we were like, oh, it's good enough. We don't really need to test our gear. We did use a hose to test our gear, which I do. I think honestly, standing in the shower with your gear for any of these races is super useful. Mostly race the wild coast so you can see if it dries out. But for Mongol Derby and Gaucho Derby, you need to know if you're going to be dry. My super expensive Arc'teryx didn't hold up, but that's a different part of this podcast. Yeah, I did a lot of physical fitness training, which I usually do anyways, because I don't know, I'm a masochist like Sarah. My husband and I pushed each other a lot. I mean, that's kind of part of our boot camps, and what Sarah trains to is physical fitness for ease of riding, and it does make life so much easier. I'm not taking my own advice during COVID times. Unfortunately, I need to get back into shape again. But we were pretty fit for the race. We would have been able to run a half marathon, I think, without any problems, which is kind of like my baseline. I tell people, please try to be able to run a half marathon before doing one of these races. It's just very useful. Running is so important. And we did a lot of running on foot. We kept jumping off the horses and running to go recce the trail and see what was up ahead. It was really helpful to be able to be that fit for the race. This was the easiest race for me physically that I've ever done, but this is also the most fit. I went into it the most fit I'd ever been in my life. Let's see. And then we did a lot of food testing beforehand too. Yeah, I'm getting off track. So that was how we were physically ready for the race, but maybe we didn't know what the conditions were going to be. So I guess we hadn't tested our gear properly, but kind of couldn't have, I guess.
Cool. All right. Well, for both of you, if you could just do a little quick, what was your favorite moment or experience during this race? If you could just pick one that you wanted to share your favorite.
Do you want me to go first? Okay. So retrospectively, and this hindsight is 2020, and type 2 fun sort of way. I don't know if it was my favorite moment, but it kind of epitomizes all my favorite moments, which were being on a horse in absolutely stunning, unrealistic views. As I thought we might die in the snowstorm, the snow cleared. I thought I had no idea where I was because it was such a whiteout snowstorm. You couldn't see anything, and suddenly it cleared, and there was a massive mountain coming down to a lake. I mean, just incredible scenery, and there was a freaking rainbow going into a snowstorm, which I've never seen. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna die, at least it's the most beautiful place I might have ever been. It was ridiculous. So it wasn't necessarily a favorite moment, but it kind of was, because there were so many beautiful moments. And how funny is that to have that feeling, like
That's
where you
so
can
cool.
appreciate beauty and death.
How about you, Erik?
I have to say my favorite moment was honestly the blizzard in the grand scheme of things. I was riding as a crew member, and it's just, I mean, nobody died. It is what it is. Adventure shit happens. But it's really cool to see. I mean, the whole point of adventure is for something to go wrong, for you to face a real challenge. And I think, that moment was pretty cool. It was all of us, the riders who'd made it to the camp that I was at, team working, just kind of looking into ourselves and each other to get our shit together and, you know, stabilize the people that were hypothermic, you know, manage 30 horses there. It was a big ask, a big camp, and like it was definitely pretty real circumstances with people's health. And I think it was really cool just, you know, being with that group of riders. Some I didn't know, some I knew, like Stevie and Dylan, obviously really personally. And it was cool just to, like, that's why I do adventure. That's the whole point. I want to be pushed. I want things not to go right. And I want to be able to, you know, solve problems. And I think that was cool because it was really awesome seeing people, you know, a lot of people's gear was wet. Like we had tons of horses to take care of, like it's a blizzard, you know, things weren't going according to plan. And, you know, we pulled together and we made a plan, and like, that's the story of the adventure I think we all go to as the pinpoint. So for all those that were on that mountain with me and Stevie, you know, some camaraderie was there, and we killed it. We got everybody, you know, safe and stabilized. So that's my favorite moment.
I think we all love a challenge, everybody here.
Yeah.
So flip side of that, what was your least favorite or most challenging, but not in a good, fun way, not in a rewarding way? Just, it could be anything totally random, you know. But what would be the thing that would put you off of it, maybe?
Yeah, one thing, my boss's sense of navigation, as in Tom, who owns the Adventures and made the route originally. They're changing it, so don't worry, future Gaucho Derbyists, it won't be like this, but Tom literally had no idea what to give us as far as how to navigate. So I've heard a ton of people be like, oh, you guys must have not been good at navigating. And it was like, damn it, I forgot a copy of my map for this, but it was just nothing. There was no way to plot points. It was complete.
I'm not gonna lie, Stevie. I was watching your dots and I'm like, Stevie and Dylan know better than this. What are they doing?
Exactly. Yeah, we got a lot of that. And so it was really frustrating, but then it sort of rendered a lot of really good navigators and really good riders kind of like out of the competition. And so it just became an adventure, which is actually what Tom wanted in the end. So it was great. It's going to be different in the future, but it changed the race, and you just have to be open to change, and you have to really know what you wanted out of the race to begin with in order to really enjoy it. And we did anyway. So that was cool. But yeah, I was very frustrated with the navigation, as in there wasn't any tools to use to navigate properly.
How about you, Erik?
Let's see. The bogs were definitely my least favorite, probably as terrain goes. The bogs.
Can you describe the bogs a little better? Because I understand they're not like the bogs we know here.
Yeah. Well, you know the bog.
Story with rocks.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't
Sarah,
know
you
that was
remember?
possible.
I'm trying to think if we had that many bogs on the reindeer trip you came on. I can't remember. But basically, yeah, they'll like go sink half your horse kind of thing. Like my horse fell in one and just kind of laid there, and I was like, oh fuck, you gotta be kidding me. Granted, I picked a horse that looked like the White Mountain, so he was able to clamor himself out. But yeah, those are my least favorite. And I think speaking on navigation, you know, I think the biggest issue too, and why the dots just kind of went all over the place was because people don't know what the terrain is. They don't know, and meaning like, okay, you like as a rider, if there's bogs down by the river, you're going to climb up higher to think that it's drier and it's solid, right? And it wasn't. You climbed higher to avoid that, only to find there's these bogs that are like rocky bits in the mountain, and then just sink in like little quicksand. And you know, none of us knew what that was. Like we didn't know. Yeah. Map, and you see these dots going kind of all over the place because that's people, you know, it's the adventure. Like we're all just kind of getting our feet wet, even some crew members, and being like, oh, that's up there. Like, okay, then I shouldn't have made that choice. But this is like the first part of the race, you know what I mean? So you're just figuring out Patagonia and, you know, the dangers and the terrain and the challenges that it comes, and you're trying to adapt to it. And that adaptation doesn't mean that you just go in a straight line. You've got to figure it out. It means you've got to search, you got to hunt, you got to peck, and be like, oh, maybe I'll go. I mean, at one stage, me and Ivo rode through a forest to get like this weird, crazy,
yeah,
forest.
compared to Derby and Wild Coast and everything else, like we all intuitively thought we thought there'd be some kind of intuitive track to follow. Oh no, it was like legitimately bush bashing, as in you needed to break down sticks, twigs, you needed to sink through bogs. So we just weren't expecting that. No one could find a trail because there wasn't one.
Wow.
Yeah.
No cattle
Eventually we
trails
found a
or
little
trails
like,
or anything, huh?
well, we found a little cow path highway, and that was just magic. Because that little bit going into that check too, we were able to actually, pick up some speed. So that was pretty cool. But also, yeah, that was the not fun bit, was the slow bogs and figuring those out. But is what it is.
Okay. All right. So the main part we had coming up. Let's get to the actual gear, because I know Alita's asking for the gear too. So let's get straight to the gear now. Now that we have a bit of an idea of what it looks like there, and how cold it was and how wet it was, tell us about what you brought and what worked and what didn't, and give me the why. I know, Stevie, you've got a pile of stuff somewhere around you. Erik, did you bring anything, or do you want just Stevie to go?
Did I
How
bring?
do you want to do this?
I got a couple of things here, some things over there.
Okay. Well, I'll let you guys duke it out for who wants to go first.
Stevie, you go.
Okay, I will try to make this quick because I could go down rabbit holes with gear for ages. They're kind of what my focus is going to be. We had a lot of people had some good stuff for them, but what made Dylan and I do really well in the race and win the Vet's Choice Award was what we brought for our horses. And this is applicable definitely to Mongol Derby, but also Race the Wild Coast, and most of all Gaucho Derby. Are a couple things that I'm going to give A's to, and then I'll move on to things that are very Gaucho specific. But just wanted to say, bringing a small bottle of this is Cowboy Magic Super Shine, but I mean there's a ton of different products out there that are Shoshin like that can be put on under any saddle or where a rub is starting and it'll stop. I love this stuff. Any kind of body glide, if you know me at all, I talk about using this all the time. I use it on me and on the horses.
Yep.
Having a small brush that you can use as a hoof brush and as a brush to get dirt off your horse so you don't have a rub in the first place, super helpful. Let's see, what else was horse related? We brought girth covers, which I have right here. That helps so that your horse won't rub. Totally worth the wait. Take it out of your food, whatever. We choose to do these races, the horses don't, so it's up to you to keep the horses safe. And then I used breast collar, super helpful, probably on Race the Wild Coast too. But we brought all our own breast collars just to make sure that we had something that was going to hold up going up and down those hills, and it was so useful. We actually lent ours out halfway through the race when we got rid of pack horses, and some other people use them, but I have the Mad Tack and Zilko ones that are available at Riding Warehouse. They were amazing. So that's my go-to horse gear for Gaucho Derby. As far as coats and stuff for riders, make sure you have a waterproof one. I had a super expensive Arc'teryx and it didn't work out for me. Other people had great Arc'teryxes. I've sent it back to the company and they're actually trying to fix it for me. Mine soaked through, even though I had tested it. I didn't test it enough. I would have retrospectively stood in the shower with it. I just thought a $700 coat wasn't going to leak, and it did. Dylan had this Mammoth jacket, and it was amazing.
My jacket?
Well, so that's a great bit of gear. So rain jacket's super important for Mongol Derby, Gaucho Derby. As far as warmth, anything smart wool base layer. I used this it was a neck buff. It was amazing because you could use it as a hat, anything else. I loved it. That I got from Riding Warehouse as well. I mean, I can keep going through this gear. Another thing that was really useful for riders is when you have a pack, and I highly recommend Osprey Packs. Dylan used the Raptor, and I had the Dyna that I borrowed from a friend. We also put these little sheepskin covers, and we ran the straps through here. Highly recommend sheepskin anywhere your butt touches or anything that touches you on the horses. Over long distance, as you know, as an endurance rider, super helpful. Then there's like a little bit of personal gear, and I'll be done with gear then. Always important and helpful at start camp to have a hole punch and to have a marker, because you need to label things. I always have a use for this no matter where I go. So Sharpies are very helpful at start camps. Zip ties, always helpful in endurance rides even. Those are some of the greatest things. Super glue, which I don't have with me. Something that was really useful for all races, but really for Gaucho because of the wind. The wind is incredibly sharp there. Is basically Neosporin, but you can rub that on your face if you have windburn, and you can use this on cuts or anything else. Having a good medical kit is very important. Also with some kind of tape. I need to look this up, but this is some kind of veterinary tape that is waterproof. And I put it around a pill bottle that had antibiotics that we brought with us.
Is that like hockey tape, Stevie? It looks like hockey tape to me.
Yeah. So it's like hockey tape, but it's way stickier and it doesn't come off. So like it's great to, if you start getting a rub, you put it on and then you can't ever get it off again, but that's kind of the point. You can suffer through it later. Having a great headlamp that's pretty waterproof. Black diamonds are expensive, but they work really well. This one's actually done every adventure race, including the Kraken Cup with me, and it's still working. So that says something. And it's done Travis.
I got a matching.
They're so good. They're so good. And having a lighter that works no matter what. This is Dylan's favorite piece of gear was the Zippo. And now it's not going to work, but because I can't do it with my left hand. So yeah,
starting fires and keeping warm, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, Eric's gonna be telling you how important a fire is, and something in case you get diarrhea, guys. It's important, just in case you don't want to get dehydrated out there. So yeah, that's the basics of medical kit, and I know I've rushed through it. My last bit of gear for all the races is cage stirrups, so that you can wear tennis shoes that support you better when you're running. Oh yeah, that's also what I'm wearing is I'm wearing Solomons that are waterproof. I recently ripped these jumping off, but they didn't rip or do anything wrong in the Gaucho. And then the Ariat Terrain half chaps are amazing, and Iridian Synergy breeches. So I'm wearing them to go riding today. And that's it.
Okay. Well, before we move on to Erik, I just had a couple of follow-up questions.
Yeah.
You talked about your rain jacket. Did you have another layer underneath your rain jacket? Like I know when I did the Derby, I had my merino base layer, and then I had a nano puff because it would fit real small in my backpack, and then I had a waterproof. So did you layer like that as well for this race?
Exactly like that, yeah. So everyone, I think nano puffs for the weight, totally worth it. Dylan had a Rab one. I had a little kid's large Jerry one, which is a sailing one. It was amazing. And then, yeah, any kind of wool base layer is really great because it gets wet, it dries much more quickly than a synthetic will. And I believe I had 3 base layers. I had an Under Armour, I had an icebreaker, and I had which one was I missing there, and a smart wool. So I had a lot of layers with me, and it still wasn't enough. I mean, for the Gaucho, I honestly think you need a full ski gear outfit. I had Horsewear of Ireland rain pants as well. Those held up pretty well considering. So I think we might have lost Sarah again. If Erik, if you want to take over gear till she gets back, and she can ask any questions that she needs, but why don't you say what has worked for you, because you've been adventuring more often than I have.
Okay, let me just get all my stuff. I was like collecting things. I wonder when it hang on one sec. So we'll go over, okay, let's go over the layer stuff first. So what I brought was this really bougie, actually, Cashmere Cardigan. Oh wait, Sarah's back. Let's see if she wanted to chime in.
Okay,
okay, Sarah, good. Keep going. We lost you, now
country
we got
internet.
you.
You guys know the struggles. But yeah, keep going, Erik. If you're on a hot streak, go for it.
He's not.
Okay, well, I just took over. I'm not. Wait, now I'm frozen. Dang it.
Are you,
I'm frozen, but I see you guys.
oh, you're working
No,
fine, Erik.
You're working fine.
Oh, okay. You can see? Okay,
Yeah,
there
we
we go.
can see you.
I can't see, so I have no idea what it looks. Okay, whatever. But so layer-wise, what I brought was the uppers. I brought my cashmere kind of bomber jacket that I got in Mongolia. Definitely not cheap, but it's wool. It's legit. And this works awesome. And it was wet, and it still kept me warm, which is something great about wool. And then I had my Arc'teryx puffer with the hood. I like things with the hood because you can also put it in your helmet, which is nice to keep your head warm too. And then I had, what's back here? Actually, Dylan had the same brand, but I work a lot with Mammut, and I had one of their waterproof shells, and it was actually pretty waterproof for the most part. I think Dylan's might have been better. His is more expensive, but this did work nicely as far as the upper body. So that was my layering. That, and then I had some. This brand Outlier makes really awesome heavy duty wool t-shirts that I wear all the time. Kind of expensive for the boys, but anyway, so that's what I did for the uppers. And waterproofs, I had Mountain Hardwear rain pants. I don't know if I'd recommend those. Again, they weren't that waterproof. I have Mammut waterproof pants in Mongolia. They work way better. That's what I wore this summer, or last summer. So that covers that. Now Eyewear, I got, these are super bougie, but that part isn't. But during the blizzard and things like that, these work great. They just go on like so, and then you've got the side protection, polarized, all that stuff.
Those are
They're,
so cool, Erik.
those
I
are
love
Jubo.
them.
Yeah, Jubo makes those. Glacier. I'll show you again. Boom. It's all about the side profile. That's that. Moving on to footwear, I will say don't do what I did. I bought
What did you do, Erik?
I bought some local boots from Patagonia, and actually, because I thought, oh, Gauchos wear them, I'll wear them. They probably definitely don't wear the ones I got. They were not waterproof, and the heels actually broke off sliding down the mountain. So at one stage in the race, when I had to get off and lead my nice horse down some pretty steep terrain, I just slid. I couldn't even stay up. It was a pretty poor choice on my part, and my butt got nice and cactus little needles all over it because the grass there is really freaking spiny. So know that nothing there is soft and fuzzy. Okay, besides the horses.
Sounds like Wild Coast. Everything was thorns in the Wild Coast.
Oh yeah.
All of our clothes got shredded.
Awful.
None of the vegetation is friendly.
I do want to interject one thing. Erik has brought up a really good point of something I usually tell people too. Find out what the locals wear.
Yes,
but
which
don't
is
always wear
only
it.
true for the plastic rain jackets. Probably a good tip to take from the Gauchos. That was really a useful thing. That's probably, plastic was like the only thing that stood up to being totally waterproof.
Yeah, the key is find out what they wear, not just what they sell.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think some of them don't go through this weather all the time either. They're like,
no, they choose not to ride out.
At you guys, huh?
Yeah, it's not like Mongolia where they go out in all kinds of weather. It's like they literally, I think, pick and choose when they decide to go out. Yeah. That said, one of the Gaucho boys, actually a few of them, Enrique, he had these really cool, they look like welly boots, but they were like riding, they look like fancy like English riding boots, but they were just like all rubber and had a little tread and a heel on the bottom. And I'm like, that's what I will wear next time. That's great for the bogs. You don't have to wear half chaps that way. So you have both. You have what Stevie had, which is awesome. Then you have that as an option too.
No, sorry, can I ask one question before you move on about the boots? would you not want, because I would think, having done Race to the Wild Coast, you're going to get wet no matter what. Don't you want something that's going to dry, as opposed to something that's going to fill with water and you're going to be slugging around water for the next 20 miles?
Yeah, I think it gets cold. Oh, go on.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was just gonna say, you in Wild Coast you get immersed, like you're jumping in water. Here, yeah, during the snowstorm, I did get water in my Solomons that were waterproof, and it was harder to get out. But for the most part, since we'll be avoiding snowstorms and having a whole different navigation system, so you should be a little safer out there. I definitely liked this setup. You're not getting that wet. You're not totally immersed in water. So
okay, and that's kind of what I wanted to know, is I wasn't sure if you would actually be immersed in water if you had to cross any rivers or anything like that, where you would be right in there with them.
only at the finish is there a river where you get your feet wet. So
and then you can dry off. It's cool. You can have your warm finish line party. That's good. Okay.
yes.
Yeah, I think that's important to know, because I think a lot of people probably also have that question too, is exactly where the water's coming from.
Yeah.
The bog.
Snow farm, yeah, or the bog.
So if you've got
It's walking
something
through bogs,
dry
really.
up to your knee, you should be good, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continue on, Erik. We're eager
Okay,
to
so that was about the leg wear. Yeah, I more often than not just ride in tall boots anymore and forego the half chaps, just because I'm lazy and I don't want to mess with them in the morning. I just
me
want to
too.
throw something on. Yeah, I just want to throw it on and be done. So I usually go local. Like everything I've done in Mongolia has worked out perfect. It's just this was a little whoops. So little big whoops, because
Wait,
my
let
feet
me
are wet the whole
interject.
time.
On Footwear, Dylan decided to not go with to go without half chaps because he doesn't like riding with them at home. So he had been practicing with them and liked them just fine, and last minute was like, no, same thing, didn't want to have to deal with it. And I get that. There were so many stickers and we were on foot so much. His socks were full of prickers, and he was like so upset that he had not worn his half chaps. So half chaps or boots that go all the way up to the knee is definitely a must, because of the amount of time you're on foot in Gaucho.
Yeah, I will say, yeah, my poor Cashmere got like totaled. I spent a day like picking all the little burrs out of it. Yeah, so that's leg wear. I ride in usually stretchy jeans. They work great for most things, but you have to be used to them. Mongol Derby, I would say do not, absolutely no. Ride in tights, call it a day, double layers. I usually ride, if I was to do or suggest something for the Mongol Derby, I would do double layer tights. Stevie may say yes or no. Compression running tights, and then a riding tight over it is what I like best for having to really haul ass all day long. So back to Gaucho, one thing that's hugely important is your camp stove. So I think this is where a lot of people made a miss. Well, I actually don't like the jet boil, and I'll tell you why. I think that you always need to keep in mind that your gear needs to be multi-purpose. So in Patagonia, case in point, a jet boil, like the heat source, is contained underneath the pot. So it's great for on the fly, like boiling your water, whatever. But if you need to use it for anything else, it's pretty much useless. So this is my little guy. It folds down. It's made by Primus. We'll put a link in the comments. But this is how small it is. And then this is the pot. Everything fits in this. As you see, it's been through some things. And this guy hooks up to a multi-fuel canister too, so you can put anything in there and start it. What I did in the Gaucho, I just bought a little propane thing and called it a day. But this little guy is amazing because he actually came with an aluminum like wind guard, but I think we left that somewhere at a camp somewhere. But anyway, so use this to both cook food, but also to dry gear, which is most important, I think. In the blizzard, when things got wet, we woke up, the condensation in the air was really heavy. And I think that's how most people got their gear wet. Because I have a Mountain Harbor tent. It's meant for mountains, it's meant for snow. However, I woke up and my sleeping bag on outside was even damp. Luckily my tent has a vestibule. So I was able to set this guy up, make a funnel, and then dry all my clothes. So think about that. And then I was also able to throw this guy underneath a bunch of really wet and soggy logs, sticks and things like that, crank it all the way up, and eventually we got a fire going, and that's kind of what saved our asses up there. So that's what to keep in mind when you're looking at a camp stove. You do want something that's going to be able to do multiple things. And I think for any adventure, just think of the problems you're going to incur and what your solutions are to fix them with what you have. You have a question, Sarah? You look like
I do have a question. I wanted to ask Stevie if she brought a camp stove as well. And I wanted to point out the fact when we were talking about the differences between this race and the other races, we didn't mention the fact that you guys were carrying your own food and that you were camping out at night, that there was no end point. So for the Mongol Derby and Race of Wild Coast, there were generally end points or places that you could go to stay, and they'd usually have a fire and food and all that, right?
Yeah.
But you guys were totally on your own, from my understanding, right?
When we were in the mountains, yeah. If we weren't in an estancia, we were in the wild, yeah.
Yeah, the race is set up so it is really an adventure, and there's a lot of camping out. Obviously, race format changed after all our gear got trashed, but yeah, we had everyone who did the race had a camp stove, and I honestly loved our jet boil. I think Erik's idea is really good, having a multi-purpose with it, but I mean, I think we could have been creative with that if we had needed to be. Luckily, we had Erik in our camp, so we used that. But the jet boil stove was awesome, and having the right food. I mean, I could go on a whole separate thing for Gaucho Derby on the food that you bring, because that is something that Dylan and I diligently tested and did really well on.
Down the road, let's do definitely a food for adventure / riding and endurance. Let's do another one later. But yeah, so
we'll skip that. But yeah, jet boil stove, important.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Or Primus, just figure out how you're going to start a fire. I think the biggest thing when you're looking at gear, like you can pick what you want, so to speak, but just make sure that, here's the biggest factors that come into play, especially on this adventure. Your gear gets wet. And this is in Mongolia too, but in Mongolia, most likely, you don't have to bring this stuff. You are with a herding family almost all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But just think like, okay, if I get wet, if my gear gets wet, how am I going to dry it? And think of that. Like if you have the jet boil and you can't use it for, drying purposes and that, then what have you brought that you can start a fire, potentially somewhere and be able to dry your clothes? What else do we use it for? Well, yeah, and how are you going to start a fire? But Dylan had that nice little lighter there, but it's like, what other means do you have to get it going kind of thing? So that's camp stoves, and we can put links to both of them, but it's something for people to just keep in mind when they're doing a race and when they're just out camping with their horses or whatever. Like what problems are going to happen and how are you going to fix it with what you have? Another thing is water purifier. This is a bit bulky for the Gaucho, I feel like, but I like it. It's nice. It's the Grail. You see me use it all summer, Sarah. So you just press it down like a little French press. Boom, and you can drink your water, and it's all done. And it's orange.
I've got a little one color. In my hose is what I've got.
Yeah, and that works as well.
I just drink the water.
It's fine. Just drink the water.
That's why Stevie bought the diarrhea pills.
Somehow didn't have to use them during the race. The water was so pure there in Patagonia. I thought I was going to get a stomach ache, and I didn't. And Dylan and I just drank directly out of the streams. No problem.
I will say, though, at some of those estancias, there's a lot of animals around, so I would still filter that stuff. Like, let's not
I don't recommend it. We kind of live like that anyway, so.
Like Tom's drinking out of this stream downstream, and I look up and there's a horse shitting in the water, like right up it. I'm like, one other thing.
Yeah, you do need to check where you're getting water.
Yeah, check where you're getting it from. I take this everywhere. It's my little BioLite. It's waterproof. It's really, really bright when you talk about head torches. So I use this. You can charge it via USB. I bring battery packs or a solar charger wherever I go. That is one plus and downfall. It charges really quick, but also in some cases it's nice to just bring batteries and pop them in and go. That's that. Leatherman is a necessity. I mean, Stevie, right? How many times have you used this thing throughout the race? There's that. and then, well, these are kind of nice. I'm just going to show them off. These are by Mammut. They make a waterproof. This is like a alpine hiking shoe. I wore something similar like this with a higher top on my Eagle Hunter trip during the blizzard there, and it was amazing, and it helped climb a little thing like a little billy goat. So that can be an option to complement the Salomons like Stevie's got, as well as I have a bivy over here, and almost one last thing, but everybody should store their sleeping bag like this. This is my Mountain Harbor bag that I brought. You want to take care of your down, not compress it for all of its life, or it's just not good. And that goes sleeping bag. You know, you want to try to bring a waterproof bivy if you can fit it in your weight allowance. The weight allowance for the Gaucho is 10 kgs. I have a military grade bivy bag here that I actually did not bring. Probably wish I should have. But that's great. It's waterproof. I use it in Mongolia all the time. Sleeping bag, you really want to have a 0-degree bag. Period.
Yeah.
You want to really
I
research.
think we could probably do a whole nother seminar just on our sleeping arrangements too, eh?
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
So yeah, I'll just wrap it up. But yeah, those are those. And then I'll just close it on one little fun thing. This is a little, I'm looking like a hot mess, but it's a little flask for when you're going out, and it's actually magnetic.
So where you kept the Malbec?
This is where the Malbec was. And then you got 2 cups for your friends. And it also keeps things hot if you did hot water, if you like that sort of thing. I don't like hot water. And then it's magnetic, so you can just like, boom. So that's that.
And I'll just say a quick wrap up on gear. The things that actually saved lives were Erik's ability to start a fire. So starting a fire for the first time in my life actually saved my life and other people's lives. And an emergency bivy sack. Dylan and I each had one. It's like a little aluminum sheet. We used that to keep riders alive until we could fly them out the next day. And I would say the third thing was having food, because we would have run out of food, and Dylan and I had a huge backup, and we had great food. So those 3 things really actually saved lives as far as gear goes.
Oh, and a water bottle that isn't insulated. So not the bougie thing I just showed you, but something that you can throw hot water in and stuff it in your sleeping bag. Think about that. So not just that you want a hot coffee, but you need to be able to warm yourself up when your body doesn't create heat. So having a water bottle that isn't insulated is actually really good.
That's a really clever idea, Erik. I like that.
Your boy been through a few things.
Yeah. I know. That's why I brought you here. So from the sounds of it, what I'm getting from both of you is that one is that don't try to cheap out on your equipment, because in general it's expensive for a reason, and you're better off when you're doing a big adventure like this investing in something good, because it could ensure your survival. 2, you want to test things rigorously, like even as far as going in the shower with everything and putting yourself into those situations that you're expecting to have there. For you guys, a lot of it was you didn't know what you didn't know, but basically overdo it.
We lost it again. We lost it again.
I'll say,
let me look at another little thing. Remember these little toe warmers? Bring a couple of these. They're really small. So when you've had a really rough day and you're cold, or your boots are soaking wet like mine were, you can throw them in your socks and whatnot. Also, waterproof socks, which I left mine in Mongolia. I wish I would have brought them. Those are awesome. Shower Pass makes them. I love them.
Yeah, there's so much gear. I mean, as I sit here, I keep thinking of things, Ziploc bags, zip ties, you know, all those cheap things that actually are worthwhile. But yeah, what Sarah said, spending the money is extremely worth it. It's a qualification to do the Gaucho. We ask if you can do the entry, but also afford to be able to buy all the gear, and it can be about $2,000 worth of gear, to be realistic.
Yeah, it's expensive. And do your research, and for any races, like test your stuff out. And also, I think, Stevie, you agree, like get miserable with it. Like go and soak yourself with the hose, get super wet, then get super cold. Go camp out with it. Like see how long it takes your gear to dry. You know, Mongolia, it isn't fires all the time. You know, if it rains, there's no trees, so they're burning horse shit. You got 30 minutes. I don't know anything that's going to dry in 30 minutes. So just keep that in mind there. Like, what do you think for Mongol Derby as far as, well, I guess Sarah's on now, so let's see what other questions you have. Maybe we'll talk about it another time.
What's the most important time Sarah's going to speak? Let's cut out now. It's funny because it's not even raining. I have this country internet that likes to cut out when it's raining, but it's absolutely beautiful outside. And I don't know. I can't explain it. It just keeps going out today. I'm very sorry. Did you get most of my summary there? I think it was expensive is good.
Yep.
Prepare by showering yourself in your gear. And then it was, what was my last one? Oh, and bring something to make a fire so that you can warm yourself afterwards. Those were kind of the 3 key points I got out of everything you guys were saying.
Definitely. Yeah. And we were just saying again about testing. I mean, really, you know, the thing that's really apparent when you're out, especially on the Gaucho, where they literally might not be able to get to you for 48 hours. You need to be able to test your gear where you're not only trying to survive, but you're trying to take care of horses and ride them as well. So at minimum, going and camping out for a couple nights with what you want to take, and then also adding some horses and some riding into the equation, that'll really sort you out really quick. Try to emulate the situation before you're in it, so that you're not putting your life or crew's life in danger later. It's up to you to test that gear.
You guys should just come up with me and rode in the snow with me all winter.
Hey, that's possible, right? You can take people up there, no, Sarah?
Yeah, man. So we love riding in the snow up here. So I think we have just a little bit more time left, but I did want to kind of ask, we'll move away unless you guys had anything else you wanted to talk about with regards to the gear and that. Talk a little bit about the snowstorm and the rescue and what you guys did. How long were you stuck for? What did you do to pass the time? Was there anything fun? Was there anything terrifying? Just tell me a little bit about when you got stuck on the mountain.
Stevie, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. I'll start with it. Yeah, the morning of the blizzard that it started, we woke up and there was like an inch of snow on the ground. Our mountain hardware tent had about an inch of water in it, which it was previously owned by some friends of ours that ice climb, and it had lived through that. So somehow nothing held up to the Patagonia weather, which was bizarre. I will say sling fin tents, that is the only tent that someone had that really made it through. So we're definitely backing them. Anyways, woke up with water, soaking wet, had to get moving because staying in one place was going to kill our horses or us. It's just a brief summary. We got going and we're getting hit by 60 to 100 mile an hour winds to where the horses couldn't even move forward, and we had to stop and just turn our backs in the wind and wait for it to pass and then keep going. And we were slipping and sliding over rocks, still sinking in bogs that were covered by snow now. It was an absolute nightmare, a nightmare and a dreamscape. And we eventually, I mean, hours and hours and hours later, including trying to like bash through forest to get shelter, ran into Erik and some other riders that were hunkered down. And Dylan and I were going to try to push on. A couple of riders that were with us were extremely hypothermic. We were at the beginning of being hypothermic, but didn't know it yet. We were going to try to push on. Erik made the right call and said no one was moving. And they shut the race down, which they needed to. And we tried to band together and get people warm right away. We were trying to get food to everybody because that obviously helps. You got to burn those calories to keep warm. And Erik pushed to get a fire started, which was a lifesaver because wet clothing in a snowstorm just you're screwed. It was really awful. The fun part was, oh, go ahead.
How did you actually run into Erik? Like, how do you run? Because if you're bush bashing, how in the world do you run into Erik?
They actually were going to send us the coordinates, and somehow I was riding ahead of our group a little bit, and I heard someone screaming help, and I just let go of my horses who were so tuckered out, they just stood there. I took off on foot and I found Laura and Louise, and one of their horses was sinking in a bog and I had to help her get it out. And they had been part of our group, but we had separated that morning. So when I saw them, they parted their group, found Erik. So it was just kind of, we all ran into each other in the middle of a blind snowstorm, which is kind of hilarious, but it did happen. It's good luck. It was also the fact that there was a lake funneling us into the same area. I think that helped, a lake in a forest that were impenetrable.
Sounds fun, right?
Yeah.
So fun. You're not truly living till you're dying.
It's just a little bit of a hustle in a blizzard. So I respond to an SOS. I was leading the event manager, leading the forward part of the field, and Roberta, who was actually leading the race, she didn't know at the time, but she had kidney failure. So I responded to her, went and found her, picked her up, threw her on my horse. This is the day before the blizzard. And then I walked her 2 horses, and we walked from that mountain where you guys rode down from, Stevie. We walked that whole way, all the way into that forest, to kind of, it started sleeting and hailing, and the wind started picking up when we were up there. So we were just trying to find something sheltered. And we found a nice little cove for the most part in the forest, so we could tie the horses and kind of have a break.
Like 3 inches of mud deep.
Yeah, it turned into mud, but it was nice when we first found it. But yeah, so I set up a camp there, and then the next morning, well, through the night, woke up to the blizzard and just spent the whole night hitting it off of my tent. I had a mountain hardware tent too. Mine was fine for the grand scheme of things. It did take a swim in a lake like the day before, which I almost didn't pull it out, but we pulled it out, thank God. And then, so woke up to the blizzard, and then I texted HQ, like, send inbound riders to my location, because we were stable, we had a good camp going, whatnot. And then one by one, they all started, 4 by 4, before we had like half the field there, started coming and showing up. And and then, people were hypothermic, some people were, thinking they were okay, Stevie, wanting to ride on. And then, I just said, no one's going nowhere, race hold, everybody stay here, let's get our shit together. And I think that's important too, just in all races, the competitiveness and the need, and that, if you're out there and you have all the time in the world, you're going to make better decisions. And if you're feeling pressure from a clock and with people around to try to keep up, like, that does alter your decision-making process. I think that even goes for navigating within a group of people. I know, even for me sometimes, like, I was like, didn't look at my GPS and just relied on, whoever I was riding with, like, on your iPhone, be like, yeah, you guys navigate. When I'm like, really, let's just stop. Let's look. Let's see. And I think that's where some navigation errors came too, because it's like, let's just pause a moment. Everybody stop. Let's look over what's in front of us, and let's do what's the best case, what's the worst case, best case, worst case, best case, worst case, and then say, right, let's go that way, instead of just be like, that way, because I think that was the mentality that took place, and a lot of people were getting all over the place, and it could have been avoided had they, just paused a little bit and talked as a group and went over like every option possible and then selected it. But when you're in that race mind, you're just like, right, okay, you said that, I trust you, boom. Because I mean, the pioneers we had on this were epic people, they come from, very great backgrounds as far as mountains go and things like that. But those types of things we have to take into account too. So anyway, that's the blizzard story. Got a fire going. We hung up some paracord. We got split up into teams, got everybody's stuff dry. Got all the hypothermia people in a tent with Roberta, who had kidney failure, who was making them food and soup, along with like Stevie and Dylan making everybody food and soup. And Laura and Hannah and Weasel and whatnot. And Warren was one of the hypothermic people. But so we just band together and just stabilized everybody until the next day when they could get the helicopters out. By that time, everybody was in pretty stable condition. Roberta definitely needed to go get to the hospital, but they all got flown out and just checked regardless. And then we rode out the next day to a nice sunny day, not a cloud in the sky, beautiful as hell. So there you go.
Yep.
All the snow.
Did anything ridiculous happen? Did anything like ridiculous and just silly happen while you were in camp? Like I have to ask, did Chris Maud toast his underpants over the fire again? Because he did that in Race the Wild Coast, and it's like a memory that sticks out for me forever.
I think he did it at the camp behind us. I know that Dylan and I had no pants, like we
You
couldn't
had
get
them
to
on-
the fire because we had no clothes, and so we were just in a sleeping bag, like shivering to death, and we had to like borrow pants.
So this
and
is the
clothes to
second
get
time
to the
you've
fire.
used a sleeping bag as pants, Stevie.
I know, it's a habit.
This is your go-to strategy.
Yes.
Double
works.
sleeping bag though.
Yeah, with a double sleeping bag, it's not as easy, but
Okay, so if people who are watching are totally turned off and they still want to do this sort of thing, where do they find out more information about the Gaucho Derby? And how do you recommend that they start training? Like, where do they even get started on this?
Cool. So, Gaucho Derby, go to the Adventurous website and look, or if you just type in Gaucho Derby, it's going to lead you to the Adventurous website. We're getting really full for 2021. I'm sure we'll be opening up 2022 soon. I'm looking forward to it because I'm looking forward to being anywhere but just on the farm. And as far as training for it, there's people like Sarah and actually people like myself that help train riders for these things. But honestly, it's a mental game. Start running marathons, start pushing yourself to the limit. Do endurance rides. Endurance rides are great gear testing because when are you going to go that fast for 50 miles or 80 kilometers? Super useful. Get out there and ride as much as possible and ride with your gear and sleep with your gear and train with your gear. Just the more familiar you are with your kit and what you're bringing, the better. Yeah, I've got loads of tips. Sarah's got loads of tips on her website. She talks about this a lot, but yeah, those are the best ways to prepare, is to put yourself in as similar a situation as you can create for yourself.
Did you have anything to add, Erik?
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I would say. You know,
You're gonna say no.
I always have something to add. You know me. You know, I will say we painted extremely focused on the blizzard. I mean, that was 2 days of the race. It was a 10-day race. You know, it was probably the climax of it happened within 3 days. You know, but I will say it's such a cool race. You know, I think the take home, because we're all equestrians, and it's kind of like when you're in another country and you're just like, wow, this would be a really cool country to ride on my horse through it. I.e. Mongolia, when you're getting taken away with. You're like, wow, I wonder if I can pace myself. You know, in Patagonia, you can. Like, it almost feels like you're riding your horse back home. We have a mix. We have the Arabs. We have, you know, the half perch on crosses and the Criollos. And it's kind of a horse that suits, you know, everyone's kind of flavor, if you will. And I think that's one of the coolest things about it, is getting to choose a horse that you aren't going to be fearful for your life on. That you can really honestly enjoy. The adventure is tough. It's going to be tough. It's going to continue to be tough in the future years. But exploring a land on something that could be similar to a horse that you would call your own back home is, for a horse person, I think really special and a really cool part of it. And to still keep that wildness very much so at the forefront. It's not a trail ride. It's not a horse trek. Like, it is a race. It's an adventure. It's an adventure first and then a race second. But I think the other thing is if you have somebody like a friend or like a buddy, like us three are obviously friends, like this would be the perfect type of thing to do as a team. So if you have that friend that you're like, wow, like we could do this. Mongol Derby, it's a little harder because the horses are, you know, just all over
very
the place.
much a team one.
Gaucho, you can team, and it's really beneficial to do it as a team. It's enjoyable camping out in the wilds with your friend, and also where you have a responsibility for not just your own safety, but your animals too. So that's my takeaway. So if you wanted to get in, you better hurry your ass up.
And I will say, yeah, the horses are what make it. If not the scenery, the horses were so incredible. Dylan and I, before COVID and everything crashed, we were honestly looking at how we could get some of the horses back home. I mean, we loved our horses that much. They were incredible. So for an equestrian, this is a top race to do because you're just never going to ride a horse like this ever in your life. I guarantee you.
That's so cool. All right, I think we're going to leave it there because we're a little bit over time. But I just wanted to kind of wrap things up and let everybody know who's watching. If you want to revisit this, I'm going to post it on YouTube probably within the next 2 days or so. Again, slow country internet, so it takes a really long time to save and upload. So I'm going to do my best, but it'll be up there. I will put in some of the links to the items that Erik and Stevie liked. Won't bother with the ones you didn't like. And if you guys want to find out more, you can join us in our group, Ride Like an Athlete. And there are links all over the place. Come to any of my social medias. You'll find the links there. We do have another webinar coming up next Wednesday, I think, that I'm doing with Ontario Competitive Trail Riding Association. And that's going to be a fitness one. So that's going to be real fun, talking about the fitness for endurance riders. So join me on that one. It's also going to be free. And I think we'll probably do another one in the meantime too, but we got to figure out what our priority topic's going to be in the meantime. But I'm loving doing this every week. So let's keep doing it.
Cool.
And that's all I want to say.
Thanks for hosting, Sarah. You epic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
thanks,
guys too. So, love you guys, and I'll see you soon.
Love you. Talk to you this week. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye.